Hello everyone, and once again a warm welcome on another of my presentations on aviation related topics. In today's presentation I'd like to discuss on how we interpret a load sheet. A load sheet, as many of you who are aviators may appreciate, is a very legal document, and without a load sheet a flight is unlikely to depart. A load sheet contains information which is very valuable to all the stakeholders that are concerned about the operations of that particular flight. Information about general information of the flight, and the most important on a load sheet are the weights and balances, so that we keep within our structural limitations. We don't exceed any of those structural limitations in as far as weights are concerned. So a load sheet is produced, and how all the cargo and the baggage and the like are allocated in the aircraft for its safe operation. In a load sheet we often talk of or think of performance of the aircraft. Will the aircraft perform? Will it lift off the ground? Will it move? And when landing, will it land with the correct weight, which is under the structural maximum landing weight, for example. We also talk of allocation of passengers, how many passengers they are, where they are located, and in which part of the aircraft they are seated. And then we also talk of the cargo and baggage, which is carried by the passengers, or sometimes it's just sent as a mail, and where that is allocated, which compartments it's in. Is it exceeding the max limitations of the compartments concerned, and the like. And weight limitations, as I just said, there is all the structural weights, the maximum takeoff weight, the maximum zero fuel weight, the maximum landing weight, the maximum ramp weight, which are structural, and since they are maxima, it means that the weights that are on that particular aircraft should be equal to or less than these maximum. We always try to keep it a bit on the lesser side of all of these, so that the aircraft performs with adequate performance measures. Alright, so what we're going to do now is the following. I am going to break down a typical load sheet that we normally use in our company, and it's a computerized load sheet. It's not a manual load and trim sheet that is also used rather. But many airlines these days also opt to do a computerized load sheet using particular software. I'd like to say that every computerized load sheet basically has a same general format. There will be some changes and differences in the layout, but nonetheless they all contain the same general information for the particular flight. Different softwares can also be used, so that's why some of the formats will be different in the way the same information is laid out, but they mean one and the same thing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take that load sheet, and I've broken it down into the various sections which I'd like to explain in what I understand. There are various other understandings and other presentations on the same, and also on every other topic that I have actually presented, which are also on the same platform, which of course you should also see and compare, and also make your own notes and understandings out of it. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to first of all consider the load sheet sections, which there are just a very few of them rather. And the first section which comes in is known as a flight information summary, and here's how it looks like. Now on this particular section of the load sheet, here where it's blanked out will be the airline's name, the company name, if anything. Checked is where the person who has actually formed the load sheet, after taking into account all the various factors, has made the load sheet. And approved is basically the captain of the aircraft. Once he or she is satisfied with all the figures and they look within limits, that the captain signs under the approved title. Edition number means the number of the load sheet created for this particular flight. In this case is the first load sheet, if there were any drastic changes which required another load sheet, it will come under edition number 2, and so on and so forth if mistakes were made. All weights in kilograms is just a statement that tells the people who are reading the load sheet that all the weights that we see on this particular load sheet are measured in metric units of kilograms. This number here appears on our load sheets, but many load sheets may not have this number. It's basically the identification number or ID number of the person who has made the load sheet. It could also represent the checked part of the load sheet here. So just the ID number of the person who has actually formed the load sheet puts his or her number in that particular area. It was a bit confusing. Often I actually thought it was a mass, but then after extensive research and findings, I came to know that this was meant to be an ID number. On this section here of the first section is from to. So from means from the departure airport to the destination airport. The flight number will be here, and the aircraft registration will be somewhere here. Okay, the version of the aircraft comprises the following information. C just basically means the business class, carries 7 passengers. Y means the economy class, carries 60 passengers. Crew composition is 2 crew, 2 pilots, and 3 crew in the cabin. The 3 crew in the cabin can be made up of 3 cabin crews, or 2 cabin crews and a flight engineer, or any other configuration as the company might find it necessary. The date is the date obviously of the formation of this load sheet, when it was formed. The time in UTC when it was formed is also written here. Weight distribution, the first line under this section says load in compartments. So the total on this particular flight, the total load in the compartments is 1,219 kgs, and this should be less than what the compartments can hold. Okay, it's very important that we understand that particular idea, that there is a maximum limitation on different variants of the Dash 8 Q400 that are in service, where each compartment has got its own mass limitation and flow loading limitation, which you can find in the weight and balance manuals of that particular aircraft. So to interpret this, it means in compartment 1 the total mass is 413 kilograms, in compartment 2 the total mass is 806 kilograms, compartment 3 has nothing in it. Okay, so that's basically the loading compartments. The passenger and also the cabin baggage, so everybody and every item in the cabin, is as follows. The total mass is 4,854 kilograms in this case, and I'll even tell you how we can use this to basically work out the mass per passenger in a moment. So in this particular line here, you see some numbers split by a slash. The first number is male passengers, 32 of them. The second number is female passengers, 30 of them. Child classified passengers, 2 of them, and infant classified passengers as being 1. So basically, according to many authorities, there might be some differences in how we classify a passenger being a child and an infant. So a child is basically 3 to 12 years old, and an infant is any child less than 2 years old. Okay, 8 days to 2 years old, according to some other scriptures, okay, which you can definitely also find. Total of passengers is 65. That's very important. Cabin, CAB, means the weight of personal belongings which are carried in the cabin, which were not included in the passenger weight. So that comes here. Personal belongings which are carried in the cabin by the passengers but are not included in the passenger weight can come under this title. C and Y, as I said, C stands for business class and Y stands for economy class. So in this particular flight, there are 4 passengers in the business class and 60 in the 60 in the economy class. Now you may say that, okay, but we have 65 here and 64 here, is because of the one infant who's not counted. Okay. Seats occupied by cargo. SOC means seats occupied by cargo. So there is none in the business class and none in the economy class. Very important to understand this. Sometimes some seats can be taken up as a cargo allocations of allocating the cargo if needed. Okay. But in this particular configuration of aircraft on this flight, we don't have any such cargo placed on any seats. BLKD simply stands for blocked in the business class and or in the economy class. Blocked seats can be there just for maybe the seats are not operational, or there is a center of gravity issues where a particular seat or seats must not be occupied by anybody just for balancing purposes, and there might be other commercial reasons why seats can be blocked. Okay, so that covers this very first part of the load sheet, and often these CAB and SOC and BLKD are just overlooked, and some people don't really understand what they mean, but they have the definitions I've already given you in this presentation. Okay, so having said that, we can now move on to the next slide, and I wanted to just discuss a bit on how we can find the weight per passenger. Simple mathematics, obviously, which most of you would be aware of. So weight of passenger, basically you take the passenger cabin baggage line and you divide that by total number of passengers. So in our example, if you go a bit if you rewind the video until you get the first presentation, the slide that I just put before this one, you will recall that the passenger and cabin baggage total weight was 4854. On this flight there were 65 passengers, excluding basically the infant if you want, but it doesn't make a difference on if we even take that into account. And if we divide these two, on this particular flight it was 75 kg per passenger on average. So on average there were one person weighed 75 kilograms. That's how you would work out the number, rather the weight of a passenger, and it will even help you when you do LMC calculations, last minute change calculations, which are coming below. And if there are any changes, if you're adding some passengers, subtracting passengers, you can use this figure to work out what's the total mass you've added or taken out and the like. And this can also help you to program your FMS for the performance part of the aircraft. Okay, moving on, then we talk of the same idea, but now we can even do the same calculation for the weight of baggage in the holds per passenger. So for example, that would be load in compartments. That's the other line on that first section. Again, you divide by total number of passengers. So in this case it was 1219, if you recall. There were 65 passengers. So in this case it was 19 kilograms per passenger in the holds. Okay, so every passenger, one passenger was allowed to take 90 kilograms, which means that again you can work out how much baggage has been added if after the load sheet has arrived, and how much has been taken out, just to adjust your load sheet if needed, so that again we are within the performance parameters given to us on the load sheet and for the particular aircraft. Alright, the next thing are the weights. So the weights, they come in this particular type part of the load sheet. Very simple to understand. The total traffic load, basically, okay, you can ignore this one that I've just put here. Don't worry about that for now. I'll explain to you in a moment where I was getting to. But if I now talk of total traffic load, this is simply the sum of the passenger and cabin line and the load in compartments line. When you add the two numbers up, I think it was 4854 and 1219er, if you add those two up, you get 6073. The next line on this section is dry operating weight. Dry operating weight is basically the whole weight of the aircraft, excluding any other added on items. Okay, that's very important. So dry operating weight is that you can basically find dry operating weight is basically the basic weight of the aircraft plus crew plus the pantry items and the like. You'll get many of these definitions on other literature if you find them. The purpose here is not to actually go deep in these definitions and how they are calculated. It will be another presentation I would like to make on center of gravity and how it's calculated for the particular aircraft that I fly, and that might be of use to you, which I'll be in the process of making after this one. Then we come to zero fuel weight, means the weight of the aircraft excluding any fuel, and that's going to be the sum of these two, the traffic load, total traffic load, and the dry operating weight is going to give you the zero fuel weight. You can note that this is the actual, but the maximum according to the manufacturer is 26308. Okay, and the ADJ means adjustments. If there's any adjustments, you can put them next to these lines here. The next line here, the other line is takeoff fuel, and when you add the zero fuel weight to the takeoff fuel, you get the takeoff weight. Again, you can see these actuals are always less than the maximum, which means that we are good to go. Okay, and then from takeoff fuel, you're going to use trip fuel, so you're going to subtract. In this case, trip fuel was 1000, and that's going to give you the landing weight that you'll land with, or you ought to land with. Okay, that's very, very important. So these are the maxima. The taxi out fuel, the calculation for taxi fuel is maximum ramp weight minus maximum takeoff weight. That's the calculation. Maximum ramp weight minus maximum takeoff weight. Here they're using a very low number, but on the Q400 it goes to around 90 kilograms for taxi. This is all to do with company preferences on what to use so that they work on the worst case scenario. Okay, so that's very important. So all these actual weights you can see are well under the maximum weight, structural weights, so things look good. Okay, now there was an example I wanted to give you here, and I already pointed out on this part of the slide which flew in. 2 more passengers were added to the flight as LMC. The question is, are we still good on limitations, on weights? So sometimes the load controller comes and tells you, Captain, we have 2 more passengers which were not included on the manifest, but they were already booked, they are legal, and we have to put them in. Can we bring them? So if the things are looking good, if everything is below the underload that you will be discussing in a moment, then yes, the captain can say, okay, let us work out if there are any exceedances to the maxima values. Okay, so basically if it's 2 passengers and we worked out the mass per passenger was 75 kilograms, so 2 will be 150 kilograms. And we also worked out that the load in compartments, the baggages that are in the holes, is 19 kilograms per passenger. So for 2 of them it will be 38 kilograms, meaning that in total you added 188 kilograms. Okay, now the new traffic load, your old traffic load was basically 6073. Okay, 6073. Now you have added 188, so your new traffic load will become 6261 kilograms. All right, so that, having said that, let's see now what we can come up with. So the new zero fuel weight, you will have to add 6261 to 18643. This figure remains constant. The new zero fuel weight now should have gone up, but it is still below the maximum. The new takeoff weight will be the new zero fuel weight plus a trip fuel, and it also has to go up because you've added, but again below the maximum takeoff weight. And the new landing weight will be 26,854 kilograms. When you subtract from here 1000 kgs for the trip, new landing weight. So you can again see that all these three are still well below the maximum, means that this load sheet is okay, we can accept it. So all are less than structural limits. Okay, this is a quick calculation that the captains do. Others may have their own ways, means and ways of doing this, but I would do it this way just to get an idea whether the addition, subtraction isn't a problem as much, but addition is where the more problem is. Yeah, but substantial subtraction and substantial additions can cause some CG changes. Okay, but 2 up to maybe 5 doesn't look that bad. Okay, so having said that, then we now move on to a section of the load sheet where we have LMC and loading index. So last minute changes and loading index. Let's see a few things here. So here you can clearly see that we have a couple of things here to note. It says here last minute changes, meaning that any changes that have occurred after the load sheet was brought to the aircraft. So balance and seating conditions, destination, where the changes are affecting, specifications of the changes, where will the loading go, will it be in the compartments or in the cabin, are we adding, plus are we subtracting, minus, and how much are we adding or subtracting. So this is the information that we get in terms of the LMCs. Now, very important to know that the LMC must not increase the allowable underload. That's the first thing. The LMC must also not be greater. When we have done the LMC, we shouldn't get anything more than the maximum zero fuel weight, takeoff weight, and landing weight. And also, it must not exceed any limitation of the compartments in which we are allocating the changes. If it's about bags, it must the weight of the bags must not exceed, or when we bring them in, must not exceed the maximum allowable weight that the compartment can carry. Similarly, it also for the cabin compartment as well. Okay, it's very important. So on the LMC, normally we indicate, let's say, what load has to be changed, meaning are there bags, passengers, and or cargo, etc. What is the mass of the load to be changed? Where will the location be of the change load? Are we adding it? Is it about cargo, bags, and mail that we are taking, which has to do with the hulls, or is it to do with passengers, which has to do with the cabin? Okay. Is it a plus or a minus? Plus means adding, minus means subtraction. Okay, and you can easily use this. You can easily use the mass per passenger and baggage per passenger calculations I showed you previously to work out these sort of things quickly. Okay, and also what's the intended location of the load. Okay, if it's going to remain on board, where are we going with it? Okay, that's very important. And we also indicate total mass and index changes of the LMC. Okay, so this is all to do with keeping the center of gravity of all the structural masses within a safe envelope. Okay, it's all about a safe operation and safe performance of the aircraft. Okay, I hope that we are understanding thus far what I'm trying to explain to you here. You are always, of course, you're welcome to also go back and listen out again and make any comments if you want, and also make any notes if you want on anything that maybe you don't understand, and I may try and explain to you in another better way. Okay, so this section here, then there is a section here which I want to also highlight, but I'm not going to go too much detail into it. You have LI for zero fuel weight, takeoff weight, and landing weight. The LI stands for loaded index at. So loaded index at zero fuel weight, load index at takeoff weight, and loaded index at landing weight. Okay, so remember that when the aircraft is coming out of the factory, the maximum, the MAC zero fuel weight, the MAC takeoff weight, the MAC landing weight has already been worked out. Okay, these are percentages of the MAC, and the MAC stands for mean aerodynamic chord, which is simply a distance between the leading edge and the trailing edge on the average wingspan. Okay, and the MAC is that's the distance. It's a difference between the leading edge and the trailing edge, but those distances are measured from a particular datum that the manufacturer actually assigns. As I said, the center of gravity presentation I'm trying to do on another presentation, which when it is posted, I'll be referring to this particular presentation on load sheets every now and then, as I'll be explaining to you on center of gravity and their limits and limitations when it comes out. Okay, so for now, these are just basically indices, or index meaning a number that has a particular formula it's calculated for that particular aircraft. DOI is dry operating index. So you remember the dry operating weight for this particular aircraft was 18643, and its index for balance purposes is at 89.07. Okay, so these numbers here are all in inches, they are distances. These numbers here are percentages of the mean aerodynamic chord. Okay, so this section will be emphasized a bit more in the center of gravity presentation, which I should be posting it sooner rather than later. Okay, so having said that, we are able now to continue with our presentation on the next section. So the next section is seating arrangements, and seating arrangements comes like this. Okay, and as I actually mentioned, that Charlie is for business class, Yankee is for economy class. Okay, now the economy class is also divided into a couple of sections. Section 1, A, B, C, D, E, and F. So here in this case 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections. Okay, now you may wonder why this is the case. This is all for commercial purposes. Okay, a particular economy class section, ticket wise, or the price of the ticket, differs from the other sections. I can comfortably say, if I'm not mistaken, that as you go further backwards, the prices are getting lesser. Okay, so once one particular section has been sold out, then the commercial guys will consider other section, and so on and so forth. It's a very interesting topic. I have not actually interacted that much with the commercial department on how they work on ticketing, but this is all to do with how the tickets and the prices are issued on the various sections. So we cannot say that the economy class passengers are paying the same price for the ticket that they are buying. It depends on where they are seated. Okay, are they seated in section A, section B, C, D, E, or F, and the like? Okay, that's how much I can tell you on this particular section of the load sheet. All right, continuing from here onwards, we can discuss now on the underload concept. What is underload? Basically, it's a very simple concept, and it's a very useful concept, useful detail on a load sheet, which allows the captain rather, to decide whether he or she can take more load in terms of fuel or more baggage or not after the load sheet has arrived. And it's to do with what you call the last minute changes that I discussed about earlier on. So basically the underload before LMC on this particular aircraft was 1334. I'll actually show you how this figure arrived in two different ways. All right, so we bring this table again, this part out of the load sheet again, and I want to show you two ways of how the underload is calculated. If you take the differences between the maximum structural weights for zero fuel, takeoff and landing weight with the actual zero fuel weight, if you find the differences here, there will be one difference which will be the lowest. and that's what you call your limiting. You can't go lower than that. Lowest means lowest. You can't go lower than that. And that lowest is called your underload. Okay, that's the first way of doing this. Now, limiting, the L here, as you have seen, is called limiting. So in this particular flight, the limiting factor, the limiting weight, is our takeoff weight. In other scenarios, the limiting can be the zero fuel weight or the landing weight. It all depends on the scenario of the particular flight, depending on runway conditions and other performance factors. Okay, so now if we have to work out the differences between the maxima and the actual, this is what we get. For the zero fuel weight, the maximum is 1592. Sorry, the difference 1592. For the landing weight, the difference 1457. For the maximum takeoff weight, the difference is 1334, which is exactly what you have here. So this is how we calculate the underload. That's the first way of calculating underload. You can take the limiting values, and the most limiting in this case was the takeoff weights, and the underload is based on that. If the limiting was zero fuel weight or the landing weight, the underload will correspond to those limiting weights. Okay. Now, let's talk of something called the allowed traffic load. Okay. So the allowed traffic load is basically, for that particular aircraft, what can you take? What is allowed? Okay, there is allowed, then there is actual. Okay, so allowed is basically the maximum you can take, beyond which if you start taking more, you are compromising the safety and the performance of the aircraft. Okay, so the allowed traffic load is calculated as follows. You take the dry operating weight plus takeoff fuel. That gives you what you call the operating weight empty, OWE, of the aircraft. And then what you do, you work out the takeoff weight, the allowed takeoff weight, using three pieces of information. First will be the zero fuel weight information. So when you add maximum zero fuel weight to the takeoff fuel, allowed takeoff weight will be 29258. Okay, that's going to be your allowed takeoff weight for zero fuel weight considerations. The takeoff weight itself is already there, so you don't need to do any calculation on this one here. You don't need to. And if you take the landing weight to work out your takeoff weight, allowed takeoff weight, it will be the landing weight, maximum landing weight, plus the trip fuel. That's going to give you the allowed takeoff weight. So now these three values you see here, 29258, 29000, and 29123. These are your allowed takeoff weights. But the question is, which one do we take? That's very important. And for that, we do this. From the lowest of the above, we subtract the operating weight. From the lowest. When you do that, you're going to get the allowed traffic load. This is how we work out the allowed traffic load. Okay? And allowed traffic load minus actual traffic load will be the underload. So if we see this in practice, here's what we get. You can see that the smallest of these three, is 29,000, which is again our limiting weight here for this particular flight. And if I subtract the operating weight 21,593 from 29 tons, okay, I'm going to get the allowed traffic load. So on this particular flight, I can take a total of 7,407 kilograms. That's allowed traffic load. Okay, and when you find the difference between the allowed traffic load and the actual, meaning the total traffic load, which in this is 6073, you can see what you get. You again get the same underload, 1334. So here are two different ways of working out the underload, okay, which you can actually work out, and nobody can tell you otherwise. Okay, it's very important that these calculations, you understand them. Okay, they are very simple to do. The more you do them, the better you become, because load sheets can be given to you in haste. They can come incorrect. if you depart with incorrect load sheet, it can be a finding, and it can be a very, very embarrassing, if not compromising your license aspect. Okay, so please make sure that your load sheets are always clear, concise, and they show that we are within safety parameters. Good. Carrying on, the next part, the other part of the load sheet, this is a sequence. It goes into what you call captain's information. So captain's information looks something like this. Again, the weights and the indices, as I said, will be covered in a center of gravity representation. Basic weight is basically the basic weight. There isn't much about that we can talk about for now. It's the definition of basic weight, which I can definitely just post from the weight and balance of the Q400, says this. It says that this is the weight that includes all fixed operating equipment, engines and levers, switches, and the like, both standard and optional. And optional, let's say for example, can be the FMS. For example, if you want, some aircraft have got FMS, some don't. Some aircraft have got APU, some don't. So both standard and optional. Trapped and unusable fuel, trapped in the lines, for example, unusable fuel in the tanks which cannot even go into the engines no matter how much suction there is, and full engine oil. Okay, that's the basic weight. This definition is directly from the weight and balance manual of the Dash 8, okay, for the particular configuration of aircraft that the company is using. Okay, that's basic weight. The basic index, basically a weight comes with an index. An index basically is just a reference distance from a particular datum. And then we have here the center of gravity limits. So each weight, obviously if there is a weight of some sort, it must also have a limitation on its own center of gravity. Okay, so the zero fuel weight limitation lies between these two, forward and aft. The takeoff weight, loaded index rather, takeoff weight, forward is this, aft is that, and loaded index of landing weight is forward at this and aft at that, for example. Dry operating weight exceptions is nothing, and these are just some figures that might be put here if there were any factors affecting dry operating weight. Okay, so if your figures and if your indices that you calculate are within these parameters, means you are safe. Okay, you can't go further than forward and you can't go way behind the aft. It doesn't make sense. Okay, so simply that's how we interpret in simple terms this part. But as I said, that all these terminologies, I'll try and explain them according to my own understanding on what they mean in basic terms, how they are calculated and the like. And I'll do my best to do that presentation very soon. Okay, we're coming near the end now. Let's see, the next thing is very important. It's to do with the statistics of the load sheet data. This is the last part. This is the very, very last part of the load sheet in this particular format. Okay, so here basically you would have the destination, departure and destination rather. Okay, especially destination. These will be your routes. Here there were 3 sectors, from departure to destination A, then to B, and then to C. Okay, so here this is very simple to understand. I'll just take you through. From where we are departing to this destination, there were 17 males, 19 females, no children, and 1 infant. Okay, the total of the masses was 734 kilograms. The weight was 734 kilograms, which was comprising of the weight allocated to compartment 1, 413 kilograms, and compartment 2, 321 kilograms. Okay, the passengers here, if you added the sum, was equal to 35, meaning 1 in business class and 35 in economy class. Okay, PAD stands for passengers available for disembarkation. Okay, and passengers available for disembarkation, basically all they mean is that there is no firm booking, okay, or they are low priority, and the first number here would be in the business class and the second would be in the economy class. So PAD is passengers available for disembarkation. Destination B had 15 males, 11 females, 2 children and no infants. Total of the baggages in the holds was 485. In compartment 2 it was loaded was 485, and the passengers in this case were 3 in the business class and 25 in the economy class. Okay, and there was no passengers available for disembarkation on this particular sector as well. Okay, and back to the destination, to where we actually started from, there was just nothing. Okay, SI stands for supplementary information, and here many load sheets and many companies can give other bits and pieces of information. In this particular case, it's just telling us dry operating weight is worked at 18643 kilograms and its index is at 89.07 kilograms. Okay, SLS stands for statistical load summary. Okay, and the supplementary information here is as follows: baggage 734 kilograms, cargo there is none, mail there is none, and then there is equipment in the compartment which can include or exclude in dry operating weight, there is none, and transfer baggage that needs to be transferred from A to B is none as well. Similarly, at point B, again baggage is 485 kilograms. We don't have any cargo, we don't have any mail, we don't have any equipment in compartments which are included or excluded in the dry operating weight or are also in the dry operating index, and there is no transfer baggage, BT transfer baggage. For the last part of the flight, again the same information has been repeated. So all this just tells us in summary what we are looking at on this particular flight. Okay, so that actually rounds up the whole presentation of the load sheet in simple terms, and also we have even given abbreviations, meaning of the abbreviations to some various acronyms like the SOC and the CAB and the PAD and the like. Okay, which I hope will be helpful. Okay, so it'll be nice to get a bit more from your side as well, those of you who are in this field, to share some information in the comments. And as aviators, I keep saying that we are here to share knowledge rather than to keep knowledge, because a particular piece of information that you share may save somebody's life for the better. Okay, so till then, I think that's about it from me. I'll try again and produce another presentation on center of gravity, which will be a carry-on for this presentation. Okay, and I hope that you're always going to keep yourself safe, as I keep saying at the end of all my presentation. Safety comes first, and limitations must be respected no matter what. If the manufacturers have actually assigned limitations on the aircraft, on various parts of the aircraft, they mean something, and if you exceed them intentionally or unintentionally, that can be subject to a lot of questioning, if not losing your license. Okay, because they may end you up in funny situations you don't want to be in. All right, till the next time, then bye bye, and we will definitely